Hello, and welcome to Presentation 12 on naturalness as a moral principle. When we talk about naturalness as an ethical principle, we need to talk about the role of emotions and intuition in morality, more so than when we talk about any other ethical principle. In particular, we need to talk about the moral emotion of disgust, or as I call it, the ick. So this presentation will break into two sections. First, I will talk about moral disgust, the ick, and its origins and its role in our psychology. And in the second section, I will talk about efforts to turn ick into an ethical principle. I want to start by talking about moral intuitions. Most of our ethical thinking, most of the time when we think ethically, we are actually just responding intuitively. So a moral intuition is an immediate, unreasoned feeling of moral approval or disapproval for a situation. If you see someone being hurt, you will intuitively disapprove of it. If you see someone helping a small child, you intuitively approve of it. Moral intuitions are the beginning of all of ethics. Nothing would get done ethically if most human beings didn't come equipped with the ability to form these intuitive judgments. The more complicated forms of ethical reasoning we engage in, that we've been engaging in this class, are merely attempts to refine and improve upon moral intuitions. The most basic set of moral intuitions are those surrounding preventing suffering and protecting the helpless. Without the urge to protect the weak, humans would not be able to raise our young. Without sympathy, we would not be able to put the needs of others on the same level as our own. You feel sympathy for someone when you feel their pain, and you want that pain to stop the way you would want your own pain to stop. The moral intuition of sympathy is a lot of what underlies more elaborate ethical theories like utilitarianism, which is what we saw from John Stuart Mill. Sympathy tells us that other people are suffering and that this is wrong. Utilitarianism tries to turn this into a moral theory that will that will help us relieve suffering in the world. There are other important ethical intuitions. The intuition of fairness is what lies behind all of the theories of justice that we've looked at. Group loyalty is also an important source of moral intuitions. When people identify with a nation or a tribe or an ethnic group, they want to do things that will promote that group and will, in fact, sacrifice their lives for their country or their race or their tribe or their ethnic group. This, of course, comes with a nasty downside. Loyalty to your group tends to also come with antipathy, hatred for outside groups, and it's not clear how easily these two sets of moral intuitions can be disentangled. Finally, there is a natural human tendency to obey authority, and this as well is a source of moral intuition, so that people who disobey authority are instinctively condemned by others. This list of sources of moral intuitions, I should add, comes from the psychologist Jonathan Haidt. You don't need to know that, but I should give him credit. All of this brings us to the ick. These are the instincts that Jonathan Haidt calls purity instincts. We can also call them fear of monsters. Let me give you an example. I'm going to now incite in you a moral feeling of disapproval that will be completely detached from any kind of sympathy or any notion that someone is harmed or there's any suffering.
Bob and Susan have been friends all their lives because they're brother and sister. They're now in their 20s. One day, while on vacation in France, they decide to have sex. Why not? They're both infertile. There's no chance that children will be born. And they have a good time. Nothing ever comes of it. They don't talk to anyone about it. Nothing ever happens. It's just their little secret that they enjoy. Most people right now are thinking, ick. Sibling incest is icky. Nevertheless, you can't identify someone who has been hurt. There's no harm here. Sympathy isn't an issue. So what is the issue? The issue is purity. We have certain categories in our heads, and these categories have to remain separate. So one category is the sibling relationship, and another category is the romantic relationship, the sexual relationship, and those two are supposed to stay separate. Purity. Another way of thinking about this is to think about the image of a monster in history. Throughout history and literature, all over the world, a monster is a creature that combines the human and the animal. Think about the monsters from Greek myths, centaurs and satyrs and that sort of thing. They're all half human, half animal. And they're scary because they break an important line for us. They violate intuitions of purity.
Purity intuitions focus on matters of food, sex, and excrement. They target things that are unclean in a religious sense of the word. In America right now, a lot of religious ethics is focused on sexual morality, for instance, with the gay marriage debate. But it is important to remember that worldwide, food taboos are as important for religion as sexual taboos. Think about the elaborate rules for kosher and halal foods. The other thing to notice about food, sex, and excrement is that they all involve things that go into or out of the body. When it comes to breaking boundaries, bodily integrity is the scariest one to violate. This also relates to the evolutionary roots of these instincts, which focus heavily on avoiding disease. Just as our ancestors needed instincts to tell them to protect infants, they also needed instincts to keep them from eating rotten meat.
Okay, some caveats about what we're doing. Purity intuitions have incredibly varied sources, simply biologically. For instance, the incest taboo has an obvious biological origin that is completely separate from taboos or purity intuitions about monsters. So when we try to make naturalness into a moral principle, we will often only pick out a few of the purity intuitions that we have and try and rationalize them. Moreover, efforts to make naturalness a moral principle are more likely to revolve around the words used to articulate the ick in our current culture than they are the feeling of ick itself. So in some ways, what we're looking at are ways of trying to expand on the words we use to describe feelings of repulsion. Words like unnatural, ungodly, that sort of thing.
I'm going to look at 5 different approaches to turning purity instincts into moral principles. The most basic approach will simply be to honor purity instincts, to obey them, and not try to analyze them any further. This was an approach taken in an influential article on the cloning debate. Other attempts to turn purity instincts into moral principles involve analyzing the instincts more. I'm going to look at 3 efforts here. Naturalness as honoring telos, as relinquishing power or not playing God, and as obeying divine command. The last possibility that I want to look at is that we shouldn't listen to our purity instincts at all because they aren't really moral. I'm going to call this the null theory of naturalness.
Principle 1. honoring instinct. This is actually the simplest version because it simply says, listen to the ick. More specifically, instinct provides a prima facie reason to act or abstain from acting. Now, a prima facie reason is a justification for acting that might be overridden by other reasons. So it basically says the ick is probably not lying to you. If it feels icky, it's probably wrong. So an important premise here is that humans have roughly similar ethical instincts, so that we all, if we act on the ick, will be acting in harmony. And this is mostly true. Okay, here's an example of honoring instinct in ethical reasoning. This is Leon Cass's argument against reproductive human cloning, which is in your Munson textbook. So Cass begins by saying that reasons cannot adequately capture the wrongness of most sins. That is, there's no point in trying to articulate anything beyond our intuition that certain things are sinful. The articulation will always fail. A profound feeling of repugnance can capture the wrongness of sin. That is, the intuition is far better than any attempt to verbalize the intuition. Therefore, we should generally trust our instincts when they tell us that something is wrong. Reproductive human cloning is instinctively repugnant. Therefore, we should ban the reproductive cloning of humans. Concept 2, honoring telos. So here's an ethical principle. Treat things according to their telos. What's a telos? Telos is the Greek word for end or purpose. And in Western philosophy, since the time of Aristotle, it's been thought that everything has a telos. Everything has a purpose. The purpose of a knife is to cut. The purpose of an acorn is to grow into an oak tree. Aristotle felt that the purpose of a human being was to be virtuous and happy. Some funny things happen when you say that everything has a purpose. For instance, the purpose of an acorn may be to become an oak tree. Nevertheless, most acorns do not become oak trees. Many of them become squirrels. They're eaten by squirrels. They get turned into squirrels. Nevertheless, the purpose of an acorn isn't to become a squirrel or to rot in the ground. So sometimes things will have a telos, but very few of them will actually achieve their end. This may be the case with the human telos as well. If the end of a human being is to be happy and virtuous, if that's the oak tree that we are trying to become, it may be that very few of us actually become that oak tree.
As I said, the idea of telos has its roots in the philosopher Aristotle. Aristotle was incredibly influential in the Catholic Church, and you can get a very good idea of how the concept of telos works in practice, in practical ethics, by looking at the section in your textbook on Catholic natural law ethics. That's pages 764 to 769. I will focus on one part of that reading here, the discussion of the principle of totality and contraception on page 766. See, you as a person have a purpose. We've been calling that a telos. Also, every part of your body, every bone and every organ has its own purpose. The principle of totality says that you can only block the natural functioning of a part of your body if it serves the functioning of the whole body. Thus, surgery to remove an organ is justified if it serves the overall purpose of the body. Now consider contraceptive surgeries, like a tubal ligation or a vasectomy. Do these serve the overall purpose of the body? Not according to Catholic bioethics, which says that reproduction is a part of the purpose of the whole body. So contraceptive surgery, like all forms of contraception, actually violates the telos of the body and is immoral.
Obeying divine command. A lot of people who use purity intuitions in ethical reasoning are very religious. So let's just go ahead and put it on the line. Here's an ethical principle for you. Actions are good if and only if God commands them. This is called the divine command theory of ethics. Ethics is all about simply obeying God's orders. Figuring out what is right and wrong is a matter of figuring out what God wants you to do, either by consulting Scripture or praying or whatever. Now, I should note that not everyone who believes in God believes in divine command theory. You don't have to believe in divine command theory if you are a theist. The alternative is to say that God and goodness exist independently of each other, and that God, in his wisdom, only commands things which are already good. All right. Well, here's an example. It's something that I see commonly in discussions of genetic engineering. It's a divine command argument against genetic engineering. It goes like this. Humans are made in the image of God. God's image is found in our genes. Therefore, altering our genes alters God's plan. Now you throw in an ethical principle here. Actions are right if and only if God commands them. Therefore, we should never alter our genes. We are defacing God's image if we practice human genetic engineering. Relinquishing power. Here's an idea. If an act requires more than human wisdom to do properly, we should refrain from acting. The premise underlying this is that certain acts require judgments that humans are constitutionally unfit to make. We just don't have the brains to wield this kind of power, so we shouldn't attempt to acquire it. This is the intuition behind not playing God. Whenever someone says that, if we did this, we would be playing God, what they really mean, I think, is that to wield the kind of power that the person wants, you'd really have to have more intelligence, more wisdom than humans are capable of. Gordon Graham, a British popular philosopher, has an argument about playing God and genetic engineering. He says that playing God is declaring from an outside perspective that someone else's life is not worth living. So, if I look at someone with Down syndrome, I'm not them. I don't know what's going on in their life. And I say, that's just not a life worth living. I am essentially playing God. I am judging someone else's life when I'm not entitled to. Well, Graham says that whenever you genetically engineer a child, you are effectively saying that the child who would have been born had a life not worth living. Right? So if you attempted to use genetic technology to remove a birth defect for cystic fibrosis, you'd be saying the life of a person with cystic fibrosis is not worth living. And that's simply playing God. That is making a kind of judgment that we don't really have the capacity to make. Therefore, Graham concludes, genetic engineering is always wrong.
The final possibility I want to consider is the extreme opposite of the first possibility that we looked at. In the beginning, we considered Leon Kass's idea that feelings of moral repugnance should simply be respected and not analyzed in any way. Now I want to consider the idea that these feelings should simply be ignored. The idea is that although we are full of instincts, not all of them are really good. Our group loyalty instinct comes with an instinctive hatred of outsiders, but that hatred is not good. A lot of political and ethical debates can be looked at as debates over which of our intuitions are really moral. John Haidt, whose theories I have been building on, suggests that people in the U.S. who identify as liberal only recognize intuitions regarding preventing harm and promoting fairness, and do not recognize intuitions about obedience to authority, group loyalty, or purity as being really moral. Instead, these are viewed by liberals as irrational prejudices. Conservatives, by contrast, accept all of these moral intuitions. We can codify some of this liberal attitude as a principle. If feelings of repugnance, purity instincts, cannot be explained using ideas about harm or fairness, we should ignore them. This idea clearly motivates a lot of liberal politics. We will see its role in the gay marriage debate in a second. Right now, I just want to note that most people will not want to follow this idea through to its logical conclusion. Some of our most powerful moral intuitions cannot be captured using ideas about harm or fairness, and people will be loath to abandon them. The clearest example here is the taboo against incest, even between consenting infertile adults. My last example of an argument involving principles of naturalness is an argument for gay marriage. Unlike other arguments involving naturalness, this one asks us to deliberately ignore the feeling that certain practices are unnatural. We begin with the observation that most people in America find the idea of homosexuality instinctively morally repugnant. Homosexuality is felt to be unnatural. I should note in passing that this particular purity instinct is not universal across cultures, the way that, say, taboos against mother-son incest are universal. Now let's invoke the null theory of naturalness. Feelings of moral repugnance should be ignored if they can't be explained in terms of fairness or preventing harm. Now, consenting adult homosexual relationships harm no one and do not violate principles of fairness. Therefore, homosexual relationships should be treated in the same way as heterosexual ones. Therefore, in particular, gays should have the right to marry.